Welcome to Talk Purpose and Truth with Eden and Kim, shifting you into higher consciousness, the show that elevates, uplifts, and encourages listeners to grow, heal, awaken, and evolve. Eden and Kim include bold topics, special interviews with inspiring guests, intuitive readings, channeled messages from beyond, including celebrities, hot topics to expand your awareness, and time for questions from the audience. Tune in for unprecedented truth, authenticity, on-purpose discussions, and magical moments.
Musical director, songwriter, and is best known for having worked with Prince for many, many years, part of the Time, part of the MPG, worked with Maceo Parker, Mazarati, among many others, and I'm sure he'll add more. I did notice that, and I have seen it so many times, that he got to perform in the Super Bowl with Prince, which I feel was the best one that's ever been done yet and can't be topped. So I'm getting lots of goosebumps. So I feel like we have some good energy here with us today. So welcome, Morris.
Hey. Fantastic. Glad to be.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I see you have.
I'm happy to be here.
Our audience can't see, but you have some Prince memorabilia behind you.
They'll be able to see on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be on YouTube.
Yes. Yeah, and I wanted to shout out to Cindy Cowan because she's a friend of ours, and she was highly recommending that we have Morris on, and we were like, yes. And we have a lot of audience members that love Prince. We've had on Dwayne Tudall, and we've had on Cindy, Devin DeVasquez, Neil Carlin, a bunch of people that also have worked with Prince, love Prince. So we have a lot of people that love him, and we'll be thrilled to hear you today for your gifts as well as your experiences with Prince.
That's wonderful. Those are some mighty fine folks you just named off there. Glad to be in such good company.
Oh.
Right.
Well, before we start the interview, I think it's important that we address, because our podcast is all about mental health, and something that's kind of big in the news right now with Simone Biles and the fact that she opted out of competing in some of the events during the Olympics this year, just recently. So let's kind of talk about that. I feel like it was quite inspiring to me, and I think a lot of the world looked at it like that it was inspiring that she put her mental health first. So
yeah, I mean, I read about it, and it's actually a common phenomenon for someone in that does athleticism or sports. They get something called the twisties, and when we're not doing sports, we probably get it in some other form, but basically your mind freezes, and for a short time you don't know where you are or what you're doing, and a lot of times they get into these severe accidents or something can happen. And she was having that happen because of the pressure she was putting on herself and was being put upon her. And so she made that brave decision. She probably could have lied and said it was something else, but she made that brave and courageous decision to say it was her mental health. Yeah. And so I do feel like that's a good example, because people are scared of the stigma of that. Like, oh, I'm going to be looked at as, weird or crazy or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for her to opt out of something so big, as the Olympics, that really says a lot, that she's putting her mental health first. Whereas, I think a lot of athletes in the past have just worked through their issues, whether it be mental health or something physical. I think they were, a good setting an example to just push through regardless. But I think now this is something that the world needs, that to wake up our consciousness to realize that the mental health can really hinder our performance, and it's okay to say no to things. It's okay to say no to doing the Olympics.
Yeah, well, she rested and got healthy, and then she won bronze in the balance beam. So she got the best of both. How do you feel about it, Morris?
It's an interesting situation that we have here with this, because you look at a situation like the Olympics, where people train, for years for this one event. And it's very rigorous training, very intense training. And you're on a world stage, it's a lot of pressure, of course. But then this is a sport for the most elite of athletes. But what I think she did was very brave, in that she did call attention to what is happening with her mental health. I think she has a worldwide platform, and I think she can make a very big impact by putting herself out there like that. And several other athletes have. We have unless you've trained for something like this, or unless you've been subjected to this kind of pressure, I don't know if we fully understand what somebody like in a position like that go through. Now, that being said, there's many people that have high pressure jobs and have high pressure situations that you have to understand, because you've chosen this profession and you go in it. Like I look at my situation with Prince. It's very much a high pressure job, and it was very tense many days. Some days I would see his car in the garage and my stomach would get upset, because I'm like, oh my God, he's here, because he was a tough guy, but I was at the top of my game. I was at the top of what I said I wanted to do when I got in the music industry, is I wanted to be with the best, and I wanted to keep up with the big dogs. So there's a certain amount of sacrifice and a certain amount of work that goes into something like that. That is rigorous, that is difficult, or else everybody would do it. If it was easy, everybody would do it, but it's not. And so sometimes I think just like in sports or in music or in anything, any walk of life, when you get to a point where mental health question, you have to do what you have to do to protect yourself, protect your brains, protect your heart, protect your soul, whatever you got to protect. You have to do whatever you have to do in order to do that. And sometimes the thing that you're doing may not be as important as it is. What I mean? So that's the thing that is the fine balance we have to walk. I think a lot of people expect a lot of these athletes, because they are operating on a higher frequency. They are not the average bear. They're not average folks. They have this incredibly intense training. They're like the Navy SEALs of what they do. And so, the Navy SEAL training is not easy. That would be considered abuse in any other job, to be a Navy SEAL. No, not just anybody. They can be that. You can do. You pick to be a Navy SEAL, you got to expect to get your butt kicked. In order to come out of the refinery and come out to what those guys. So I think there's a balance to the whole situation. On one hand, I see that she needs to protect her health, and she has to do what she has to do to take care of that. On the other hand, you have a Herculean tech. You're part of an elite group of people who go in and do a severely trained job.
Yeah.
And when you train for that job, then people expect you to do it. When I go on stage with Prince, nobody cares about my troubles and my other things. Let me say it like this. They came expecting to see a show. My keyboard issues, my other issues did not become their issues. They paid money to come see a show. Prince told me this, Morris, like when your stuff breaks, don't stand there like a deer in the headlights. Do something. It's rock and roll. The show must go on. You see what I'm saying? So I always like to look at all sides of an issue and a situation and try from both sides of the situation. I think, first of all, a lot of kids are just that. They're kids. They're expected to operate at a frequency that most adults can't even sustain. And they go and do this kind of thing because of the training. And I don't know how they can manage to sustain their situation with the kind of pressure that they have. I think that's remarkable in itself, that these are kids, and sometimes we forget that they're like 20 and 14 and 18 and like these types. Well, we don't even give them the freedom of choice to make their own decision until you're 18, and that they have to carry the United States on their back for some of these events. That's a lot of pressure, man. I mean, I'm just saying.
Right. Right. Amazing. Yeah. Analogies. I mean,
Yes.
I do see all those sides, and that's a great teaching for everybody, is to stop, pause, and look at all sides of something before you just judge, or before you just give your opinion. So I think that's really important.
Yes, and the other part of it was when you talked about having a better balance. That's something I think that a lot of these athletes, or anyone, average person to an Olympic athlete, I think, and the Navy SEALs, we all need to be taught also how to better take care of our mental health at the same time as being an elitist, and whatever we're doing, being the best at what we're doing. I think we could have both, but I think this is a wake-up call for everyone, for the collective, for the world, to realize that has to be also accounted for when being
Right.
at your best. And if that falls by the wayside, then this is
I think you covered it earlier. The key I think of it in all of this is balance. That's the key of everything. Is having some sort of balance in some kind of situation where there's a pressure valve, and there's something that you can mitigate a lot of these issues that pop up. So I think that was what you said. I think that's
Yes. Okay. Well, let's get into asking you some questions, some personal questions now. You ready? Okay. So you have had an amazing experiences as a musician in the time, and as Prince's musical director, and in the MPG, as well as working with a lot of other greats. So what were some of the experiences, and what has this been like for you? Can you tell us about some of the most fun experiences and the most crazy random experiences?
Yeah, I mean, like I was alluding to earlier, it's a funny thing when December 17, 1982, I went to see Prince in my hometown. A small hometown in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and that was a moment of recognizing my destiny, because I was 50 rows back, and I saw the time come up, and I thought, my God, these guys are good. I'm going to play with those guys. I pointed at the stage. I said, I'm going to play with those guys. They're amazing. And then Prince came on. And both of these groups I'd never seen live before. I had never saw them live. Prince came on. I said, oh my God, he's great. I'll play with him too. Just like that. It would take 9 years for me to play with the time, and 10 years to play with Prince. And it was all about then, from that moment that I left out of that building, all roads led to Minneapolis, some sort of way. That's how inspired and like I felt like I was walking on air when I left out of it. Then after seeing that, I'd never seen anything like that. And so to leave and then have like that, that's it for me. That's it. That's what I have to do that. I have to do that. So then it's the hero's journey from that point. And it's like, whatever I have to do to get to that end, that's what I have to do. So I spent all those years doing a whole lot of other things, local bands, and moving to Chicago to go to school, moving to Memphis, moving to, going to Texas, Minneapolis. There was a lot of things that was in the route to going to the Minneapolis situation. And when I finally got a break to do it, we landed a few with my band, landed a few openings for some groups that were out in the game in the 80s, New Shoes, the Jets, Club Nouveau, a bunch of groups that were like hot in the 80s. And Mazarati was one of the groups. And we got a chance to open for them and meet Brown Mark and Craig Rice, who was manager of the group and one of Prince's road managers. And so everything just kind of like lined itself up for us to make this connection. And when I finally, and I'm condensing the story quite a bit, but when I got the opportunity to come to Minneapolis to join Mazarati, I got an audition, myself and the lead singer of my band. We went to Minnesota, and that went well. But then Mazarati got caught up in some snares when the record label changed. Motown got bought out by MCA, blah blah blah. You know how that goes. They sell off all the assets or release a bunch of artists or whatever, and then take over the label is, and then they throw out a bunch of stuff and add new people. So I basically got a job at Paisley Park, through Craig, who was facility director there, and just driving the van, PA production assistant. I had a walkie-talkie, and just picking up the talent: George Clinton, Mavis Staples, Teddy Campbell, whoever that needed to be picked up and brought on set for the film that Prince was shooting. And I got a break from a gentleman, Levi Caesar, who was one of Prince's producers at the time, threw me a bone and allowed me to play on the session. And I'd worked around the building. I'd see Prince around, but he never spoke to me. There's a lot of people who worked there at the time. There's like 100 people plus that worked at the studio. So like Star Trek, people walking around, you don't know what they do. They're just people walking and in the building. So he let me play on a song from the time. And that was my opening into the situation, because then I wasn't like a truck driver. I was the keyboard player. And Prince heard it. A guy from the label heard it. And I remember sitting in the studio, and I learned when I'm hanging out when Prince was there, because I wasn't part of the crew, I didn't want to bring a lot of attention to myself, because once he noticed you, then he would be like, what's he doing here? What's this? And then so you get. So I just wanted to always be quiet, sit in the corner, not laugh too loud. If the jokes was funny, I'd just hold it red and just not laugh too loud and just bring attention to myself. And this day he said, it's a night solo. And I kind of looked around like, you talking to me? He's like, you played solo, right? I said, yeah. Then he said, then I'm talking to you. And I said, thank you. Like, thanks a lot. And then it was like everything was cool. And that opened the door to him seeing me like as a musician rather than the band driver. And then that led to me getting in. Now, once I got in, needless to say, it was like I was alluding to in talking about the athletes. It was a very tough thing. It was Prince was always nice to me, like especially in the beginning. They call it the honeymoon period. He's just super nice. He's like taking songs out of the vault to play me, and it was just like everybody's like, man, he's letting you listen while he's cutting vocals. I said, yeah, I was in there while he was doing. They say he don't let people come in there when he's doing vocals. I'm like, yeah, I was just sitting in there watching him do vocals. I'm just.
For more information on Eden, go to edensustin.com. For more information on Kim, go to kimlifecoach.com. Make sure to follow them on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Talk Purpose and Truth Podcast. If you loved this episode, you'll love every episode. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. Thank you for listening.